I'm often asked if we can see England from here. No, but we can see Wales. It's really convenient that our bow saw is the same length as our wood stove. I just use the saw to measure the length of the stick. Gets them perfect length every time. That might do for a handhold. Looks hard enough to spark off of some back of the knife. Definitely sparks off the back of the knife. See if I can get it a little bit smaller and sharper. Should be enough here to make a spark. I'm just out on a walkabout now looking for some bow drill material. This is a downed fir. I've been picking away at this now, taking the easy stuff off it for quite a while. All the branches are gone. The long end is gone. What's left now is getting pretty hard to cut with a bow saw. That little chunk right there, maybe I can get a hearth board out of that. This is the other end of that same tree. And maybe I can get a hearth board out of that. This is another downed fir. I know I have had bow drill success with this tree. The chunk that was right there, Esther, if you're watching, that's the chunk that you used, and I have used it, and I've had success with that piece. So maybe I'll come back for that chunk. The place is just tore up with moose. This is not human tracks, this is moose. Season's open. I'm not sure if this is what Dave would call steaming or not, but it's pretty fresh. I'm not feeling it to see if it's warm. Lots of dead in here. Big piece here is fairly dry, but it's getting pretty punky. This little piece here though might be an option for a hearth board. Here's a piece I tried an end grain bow drill one time before. Could never get it to work. The stump was just too shaky. Kept on blowing out all my dust onto the ground. I tried a couple times. Made lots of dust. Just kept on blowing away. Maybe I'll cut it off now for a hearth board. There's the top half of that same tree. Maybe I'll use that. So I'm back at base camp now. This first piece was that first downed fir tree that we looked at, the very tip of it. I'm starting to break it apart now with the woodsman's wedgie. I don't want the center of it. I'm trying to get rid of all the center hearth board, but I'm looking for something maybe the length of my forearm, maybe an inch or so thick, and maybe 4 or 5 inches wide. I want something long enough that I can get my foot on and still get a couple holes into. Here I am now cutting out a spindle. Again, I want my spindle again a little bit longer than pinky to thumb. Most people say go with the pinky to thumb length, but I like mine a little bit longer, at least to start. I find that if you're going to drill them down, then you want a little extra length to start off with. This piece is the other end of that, the last tree that we looked at. I'm just trying to split it apart to give myself options. You see how easily that fir splits with this Woodsman's Wedgie. Again, I'm trying to eliminate the center hearthboard, and I just want the outer edges of it. So here I am now, I'm just feeling it, see if it's damp, see if it's cold. I'm looking at grain direction, knots. I just want to split it down now a little bit, see what it cuts like, see if it's soft. Has it gone punky? I just put it on my cheek to see how cold and damp it is. It feels good, right length. So that gives me a couple different options. This last piece I split in half. I don't like the look of it. Don't like the curl, don't like the bend, don't like the way it's split. That Woodsman's Wedgie really makes short work of splitting it up. So here we are now with that first piece. It's a little bit thicker than what I need, so I'm just trying to flatten it out primarily. I don't want to have it wobble, and I don't want to have voids on either side where I can lose my dust. I also want to get rid of that wet outer edge where the bark was. So trim that off. I want that to be nice and square so I can have a good square notch. Thin down both sides. I want it to be about the thickness of my thumb, maybe a little bit thicker. I like to have it a little bit thicker because I can thin it out in parts if I want to and still have a little bit thicker if I need to. So I like to start with a little bit thicker, maybe thin down thinner after the fact. So here I am just checking to see if it's going to wobble, if it's flat, how it's going to lay down. So here we are now working on the spindle, taking the bulk of it off with the axe. Just trying to shave it down, get something round, get the bulk of the work done with the axe before I start with the knife. Again, this is the side of that log. I'm just measuring to see here now how long it is. It's a little bit longer than pinky to fingertip. That's kind of what I like. I see some of it looks a little more sappy than others, so I'm trying to cut off some of that more yellowy sapwood. Here I am now just starting to shave it down with the legume, slowly rotating in my hand, working end to end, back and forth, round in circles. I just want something that's straight, no bows, no bends, no hooks, and round. As the string goes through the bow, I don't want it wobbling or bucking because it has a square edge. I just want something round and straight. So now I've got it down to the diameter I want. It's about the size of my thumb. Here I am now just rounding off the hearthboard end. This is just going to be really blunt, rounded end. This is where I want all of my friction, so I want to maximize the size of it. This is the handhold end, so I want a long point on this so that there's very little friction. So I want all the friction down at the board end and not at the tip. So Dave describes this as being a very fat pencil, sharp at one end, blunt on the other. So here I am now with the hearthboard again, just seeing how it's laying, how thick it is, make some final adjustments. It's got a bit of a wobble there, so I just want to work that again with the axe, just a couple little chops to get the bottom a little bit flatter. That's a little flatter now. Now I need to make a hole where the spindle is going to sit. I want that spindle, or that hole, to be about 1.5 times the diameter of the spindle. So I'm just kind of making a little divot with my knife just to start off, and then I'll burn that in after. Leave in the comments below if you see what I'm doing wrong here. So here I am now with that first piece that we split out. I'm starting to burn it in. Just test it, see how it works, see all my pieces are working. I've got a little piece of bark under my foot trying to keep that bottom hearthboard clean and dry from my dirty boot. Here I'm using the rock that I found on the beach. I cracked it up a little bit just to save weight. I find that tarp under me is keeping the board and everything dry, but it's getting in my way a little bit. So here we are now. I've swapped out that spindle. I didn't like the way that it didn't burn into the wood at all. It just rubbed. I could hear it. I didn't like the way it felt, so I swapped out that spindle for a new one. I also didn't like the way that the beach rock cut up the tip of my spindle. I wasn't getting any friction on the bottom. If you look at the footage, you can see that I was getting a lot of dust from the top of my spindle, nothing on the bottom. So here I am now using the Woodsman's wedgie. Here it burned in pretty nice. I've got the tarp under me trying to protect it from the cold, damp ground, and I've got a little flat rock as a welcome mat. Got an ember pretty quickly. Just taking my time now. Let the ember build. I've sped it up here now just to save time. I've got a nice ember. It's been raining here for the past 7 weeks, so the grass is damp. It's certainly not dry. It's marginal at best. So the ember is there. I'm going to start gently blowing on it now. Now that I've tipped it out into the bundle, I just want to let it congeal again for a second and let it work. Even though I had an ember, I couldn't get a flame out of it. The ember eventually burned out a little bit of grass that was around it, but I could never blow it to life. Off camera, I spark up a piece of charred tree fungus and add to the same wet tinder bundle. Just curious what the difference between a bow drill ember and a charred ember would do. You can see here that the charred tree fungus lit up this damp grass, no problem at all. Definitely worth keeping a bit of charred natural material on hand, just in case your bow drill doesn't work. You can always spark it from a ferro rod or a burnt lighter or off the back of your knife. It's unbelievable how quickly the weather changed here again and again and again, from snow squall to beautiful night. We're just making some chocolate chip muffins. This is a just add water recipe. So we're going to put it in this tin foil pan and put the pan into the Pathfinder bush pot. I find there's just not enough chocolate chips. Just needs a little hint of Terry's orange. So here it is in the pot with the cook grill right into the stove for 15 minutes. It's about 20 degrees here in the tent right now. 20 minutes later, it looked like the cover come off the pot and it burned up a bit. So here we are now cooking bacon right on top of the wood stove. With all the cooking now, it's about 30 degrees inside the tent. So this is the next day now. I'm making another attempt. This is the same hearthboard, same spindle. Here I am burning it in again. I flipped it over now, try the other side. I find this bow is a little bit short and a little bit heavy. It's a little bit cumbersome. And that tarp is still getting in my way a little bit. But again, it burned in nicely. A little bit of smoke. Good spot. Working out. Just cutting in my notch here now. I want to cut just to the center of that burn circle. Clean it up with my knife a little bit. Get out the fuzz. I tend to cut the bottom of my notch, just let a little air in there. Some people say no, some people say yes. I've been doing it. Seems to work for me. Here I am now, just want to touch up the spindle a little bit. Get off some of that blackened, hardened wood. Just reshape it just a little bit after I just burned it in. There's a long check running through this spindle, but it doesn't seem to be an issue. Sharpen the tip just a little bit. You can see the length of the spindle here now is fingertip to pinky. A little bit shorter than what I like. So here we are now, back to drilling. I got that flat stone as my welcome mat. Just starting to build up some dust here now. She's smoking. I'm looking into the notch to see the dust accumulate. Taking my time. Even pressure. So my notch is full. I'm going to start to speed up. A little more pressure. And I'm going to work this. I try to go about 30 strokes after my notch is full. I think my bow hooked the tarp and that's why I stopped. But the ember's there. Slowly take my foot off. Now let it congeal again. Let it build up. I've sped up this footage now. Just let it work. Watch the ember as it grows and darkens. It'll get black. Smoke will get thicker. Now's not the time to rush. A little more grass. Finer grass this time. I want to make sure I get all of that dust off. Let that ember grow. Now, gently tip it up, blow up into the center. I got some really dry plant stalks here. They're coarse, but they're dry as a bone. And there we go. A few more dried stalks. Sandwich that all together. And I can't put it out. That's success.